Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K.
Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for stopping by and checking out my latest video. And today I have a design team project to share with you guys for AngelDreamCrafts. And again, AngelDreamCrafts is a store on Etsy that sells laces and trims, doilies, embellishments, bling, just to name some of the items. I do have a link listed below in the description box, so make sure you open up my description box to get that link. I will also link the other ladies who are participating on the design team for Kim's shop. And I will also link a video from my previous design team project and my design team package for Kim's shop. I did create earlier this month this altered pocket or file folder that I created, and my original intention was to house a journal inside of it, and so I was going to create the journal as my second part of the project. But unfortunately, somehow I am very incapable of creating a journal that was skinny enough to fit inside of this folder. It does fit, but it's really tight, so I'll end up just using the folder to gift something else in it. And so here's the journal I created, and in attempts of trying to make it skinnier, I did take out some of the other pages that I decorated, but it still was a little fat, so that's okay. I still love how it turned out, and it'll make a nice gift for somebody. And so to get into the journal that I created, I did use a base for a file folder. I added some of that Ciao Bella La Travita paper that I had, and I thought this paper matched Kim's trims nicely. The paper had a nice vintage feel, and a lot of the trims that I used on this had a vintage feel or I tea-dyed them to make them have a nice vintage feel to them. And so to begin with, if you look at the spine, I did use a trim from Kim's shop, and this is kind of a champagne colored ecru type trim. It does have a nice sheen to it. It is a Venice trim. It is gorgeous. I also use this on the file folder. But I love, love, love this trim, and so I have a little bit left, so I'll probably use that on another project in the near future. So that piece did work nicely to use as my spine, so I did have part of it hanging over and then the back side of it. It's just gorgeous. It's elegant. That's what I love about this one. It has a vintage feel, but it's so elegant. And then when you look at my actual decorating on the cover, one of the first things you see is this little tassel, which Kim sells in her shop. In my package, design team package this month, I did receive two white ones. You get two in a set. She also sells them, I believe, in pink. And so what I ended up doing to make it have a little bit more of a vintage feel is I did dip it in tea, and then I did spray it with some glimmer spray that I had just so that it had a little more shimmer to it, but it also had a vintage color to it. And again, here's the white one if you want to kind of compare the colors on camera. And so what I ended up doing is I did tie a knot in the top part of the tassel just to make it smaller, and I attached it to the bulb pin or gourd pin, which Kim does sell in her shop. And I added a charm that I received in my design team package, and this is a Paris themed charm. And I went ahead and added a pearl to it also, and then I hung that off of a doily flower that I created. And so this doily flower, the top piece is a brooch that Kim sells in her shop, but it's gold and rhinestone. It's gorgeous. And then behind that is one of the doilies that she sells in her shop. And she does have doily sets or mixed sets, and so that's part of the mix set. And then there is another little flower behind there. And I did receive this from Kim a while ago in her Facebook group for AngelDreamCrafts. She did have a giveaway, and I won one of her giveaways. And so that was a trim that she had gifted to me then. And so it did work nicely in layering of flower. And then behind there you see some more trim that I gathered and just kind of used only half of it. I didn't make a complete circle base behind there. And that was some vintage trim just from my stash. Then when you look at this gorgeous image, I did go ahead and add from Kim's shop. She does have that beautiful braid trim, and she does have two different styles in her shop. And the one that I received in my package was this one right here. And what I ended up doing is, of course, framing the image. But then if you look closely at it right here in these little round circles is where I went ahead and I added some small flat back pearls from my stash to it. So I edged two corners of the frame. And then the rest of it, this is just a ribbon or a lace ribbon for my stash. And I added another trim on top of there with some flat back pearls in it. And then in each of the corners, the bling that you see here is from my stash. But this flower right here is a trim in Kim's shop. And this, I am so in love with this trim right here. And so it's this trim, this flower trim right here. It's a cotton trim. But this is perfect trim to cut up and make a lot of flowers out of. This trim, you definitely get a big bang for your buck on this one because you get so much of it and you can make so many flowers and embellishments out of this. And I did use some white ones that I cut up off of here, but then I also tea dyed some of them. And it does take tea dye nicely. And the other thing that I love about this trim is it looks nice on both sides. That I can tell that this is the back side of it, but you can easily use the back side of it and it still looks nice for layering flowers. So that was kind of nice about this trim, is that when I was using it, I could kind of flip them on both sides after I tea dyed them and decided if I wanted a little bit darker color or if I wanted a little bit lighter color, depending upon how they tea dyed when they were sitting. And so I do have those in the three corners. And then behind the image, if you look, I do have some pieces right here, and it looks like it's crocheted pieces, but it's actually off of a doily that I got in the set from Kim's shop. And let me see if I have the rest of it here. It's part of this doily. And so I did cut out the center of this one and I used it in the journal. But then on the outside, these are always fun to use. You can, of course, use them as a layering piece underneath a flower. But I did cut them up and then I used it as a border piece on the image. And I grunged it up a little bit by adding some ink to it so it is a little bit darker in spots. And so I went ahead and used a piece of bling for my closure. And then one of my little tricks, if you guys are new to making closures and you want to do a closure similar to this on your journals, is I did layer it up with a button underneath it so that I can raise it up slightly so that my seam binding has a spot to hook onto. And so when you open the journal up, I did leave many of my pockets empty so that you could add to it. And it is kind of a writing journal, so there's lots of spots to journal on in this one. And again, the paper that I use is from Ciao Bella. It's the La Traviata, I think is what it's called. And that is based on an opera called La Traviata. And so getting back into the journal, I do have this beautiful champagne colored embroidered trim. It's roses, embroidered roses on it, and that Kim sells in her shop. She does have it in a couple different colors. This one was champagne colored, and I think she has it in white also. But I did use it to create a belly band. One of my favorite trims that I worked with this month, and I did use it all in this previous project, and I finished using up the bits and pieces in this journal. And here I just created a little pocket. And then also in Kim's shop, she does sell some sari silk. And so this was sari silk. And she had used this to wrap up my design team package. And so I just cut it up and used it on some of the tags. But you could also definitely use it as a closure piece. And I kind of debated back and forth whether or not to use my seam binding on the tags or the sari silk. And I ended up using the sari silk on the tags. And so if you look at the corner right here or the edge, she does sell Cluny lace in her shop. And so this one was a little bit lighter off-white color, and I went ahead and tea dyed it. And I do have a little piece of that left, so I'll show you guys up close so you can check it out. But it's gorgeous trim, and this trim is so soft and elegant when you touch it that I just love the quality of this trim. And so I did gather it up and sewed it on there. And then another one of those cut apart flowers that I tea dyed. And then of course you'll see those flowers all throughout the journal. So I'll try and point them out when I see them. But if I don't, just know that they came from Kim's shop. And then behind this flower I do have another little doily piece that I cut up and used. I made some little page flags. And then also in my design team package, Kim sent some, she does sell some vintage paper in her store. She has some music paper and text paper. And so here's the paper that I have left. I don't have a lot left. But I did end up using the title of some of the pages said Love and Gratitude. So I did go ahead and use that on one of the embellishments, and then here was another one that I added, so I'll have that to use on a future journal. But I did make a lot of little paper pleats or paper ribbons, I think I've heard people call them. And then these are really easy. You just fold up your paper and put them through your sewing machine. You can also use glue if you don't have a sewing machine, but you can easily add them to the side of your page or right up here to the top of the page. Add a little embellishment and some sort of little sentiment. And I also added some eyelash trim behind there. But so that was how I used up her paper that she sent me. And so you'll see that those pieces kind of throughout the journal. And then also, let's see, this trim up here is from a pillowcase that I cut up. So it's some crochet trim that someone had crocheted on an old pillowcase. So the next page I did create a flip. Everything in here is tea-dyed. I didn't stencil it all, and I also inked my edges. And then again, I have another little tag with a sari silk on it, some more of that crochet trim. And then if you remember this pocket that I created, I had this gorgeous applique from Kim's shop with the flowers on it, and so it had gold and white behind it and the champagne colored roses on it. Well, I had a few of those little pieces left, and so I did finish up using them in this journal. So there's a couple little spots that I used on those. Again, the paper layering with a piece of doily from Kim's shop and the flower and the eyelash trim. Here's a little tuck spot right here for a tag. Again, some more layering, and this time I left one white and one tea-dyed just to add some contrast to it. And then on these pages, I do have the belly band, some more of that applique that I used the pieces for, one of those flowers, and then this little bow piece in the middle that I used there and up here. That came from this embroidered trim. It's this piece kind of in the middle right there. And so I had the pieces that came off of the end of this one. And so since they were still nice, I just used them up. Another little pocket right here. Then a sentiment right there again came off of the music paper. I did create one little paper clip. I would have probably made more, but again, my journal was kind of fat, so I was trying to keep embellishments down to a minimum. But I used Venice trim from Kim's shop, and it was this trim right here, which this is a gorgeous trim to use in making embellishments. And so I did go ahead and I tea-dyed it so that it was vintage. And then I added some of the flowers from that cut up flower, and I did put a flower in the front and the back just to give the back side a finished look. So that was the middle of my signature, and then I tied in, sometimes I like to add ends to my signatures, and so I use some of those flowers for the ends, and then I made sure that they hung out so that it didn't make my journal any fatter. Another pocket right here, that embroidered trim. And this one, you can't open it up. I kind of used it as a closure for the envelope. There's a spot in here to stick something. And then I also left it open behind there so you can stick something in the envelope. Another pocket. So earlier I showed you guys that the doily that I cut up. So this is the middle of this doily right here. So I used it there, the flower trim that I won from Kim's shop a while ago. Another little gold piece from that champagne colored applique. And then if you look, this edging right here, it looks like I crocheted the edging on. But again, that is a piece of a doily from Kim's shop that I cut up. And then I stitched it on with my sewing machine. But it made a cute little border on my pocket, and so I love how that turned out. Another tag with the sari silk on it. Another paper pleat embellishment. Again, the paper pleat embellishment with some of the paper, scrapbooking paper on it, the embellishment with a flower. And I did leave it open so that you could also use it as a tuck spot there. Another upper pocket. some more of that Clooney lace on the top of this one. I love how that looks when it was gathered up. And it has a nice vintage look to it, so I loved how that turned out. Another little pocket that I created with some embellishments in the side. Part of a doily from Kim's shop. The flowers, I added eyelash trim, and then the rest is all just scrapbooking paper. And so here's a big pocket. Again, more of that Clooney lace. And here's another center from one of the doilies from her shop. That big flower piece and some more eyelash trim. Then the final page, again, part of a doily and the flower, eyelash trim, and then there's the back page. And I didn't do anything to the back page. Again, I was trying to keep it kind of flat. And then here was the other pages that didn't make it into the journal just because, again, it was kind of fat. And so I had these paper pleats ready to use on another journal. And then a little sentiment, again, to use on another journal. And I'll just kind of quick flip through these. It's very similar to the last ones that were in the actual journal. Like I said, I just made it too fat. Here I just use, again, a little strip of the doily, and it kind of looked like it was ribbon, so I actually hung it off of the flower. And I grunged it up, another piece of the doily behind the flower. This was another doily that Kim sold in her shop. So that's kind of a little flip, or you could glue part of it down and make it into a tuck. Another part of a doily from her shop. I always love sewing on my doilies onto my pages, or parts of the doilies, and making them kind of as little tabs. And again, that was just some vintage trim from my stash. And so now I have some nice journal pages to use in another journal left over from this one. So it's always fun to have a few pieces left over if they don't make it into your final journal. Thanks again so much for watching this month. Hopefully you guys were inspired by my second design team project. I know I love how this turned out. I'm a little sad that it doesn't fit into the folder, but I do love how it turned out. Again, I do have links for Kim's shop listed below, so make sure you open up the description box to find her shop on Etsy and the other ladies who are participating in the design team. I do hope you come back next month in December. I will have another design team package to share with you guys along with 2 different projects. So until next time, have a wonderful day and happy crafting.